Yeah, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the ERCI webinar towards cleaner rail. And we prepared two interesting presentations as ever. My name is Matsuna from Berlin Partner, representing our local cluster Transport, Mobility and Logistics in the German capital region. We are one of the members of ERCI, and as usual, we will start with a short introduction of ERCI. This is only a slide to gives you some overview on on the design of the agenda of this webinar today. Yeah, ERCI is established as a legal entity in 2022, but most of the clusters are already working together since 2010. And it is a railway meta cluster. We have 18 nationally or regionally focused railway mobility and logistics clusters, which are covering 17 European countries. And our focus is on small and medium-sized enterprise, which is the majority of the members of all these clusters. Yeah, what we are doing is all about bringing customers, suppliers, and supply chain opportunities together, especially for small, medium-sized enterprises, investigating partner matchmaking opportunities in research and development, discover new market opportunities, enhancing the visibility on international level, for instance, with the annual ERCI Innovation Awards, for instance, with webinars, workshops, networking events, fairs, and business trips. And we are also engaged to discuss innovative topics which will have a major influence on the railway system, like cybersecurity, multimodal logistics, and green and sustainable mobility. The latter topic is one of the topics of today's webinar, and I will say on beforehand some words about certain activities of at least two ERCI task forces. The first is the topic on military mobility. One of the task force, the multimodal logistics task force, is also dealing with this topic. It was a first event already by the end of February in the La Spezia airport. Some information on this event you will find at the ERCI webpage. And the next steps are, for instance, to analyze the targeted consultation on military mobility package by the European Commission. You will find some more information on the websites of the European Commission. And for sure, further meetings of these ERCI Multimodal Logistics Task Force are planned as soon as possible regarding to this topic. Second is an activity by the ERCI Task Force Green and Sustainable Mobility. And this task force main issue is to analyze, describe, and predict the central role of the rail sector in the transition to environmentally friendly transport and mobility, as well as its combination with other modes of transport. And therefore, this task force will accompany, guide, and support the rail industry across Europe in shaping this transition, thus paving the way for the future. Therefore, this task force has initiated quarterly surveys in order to get a picture on sustainability topics from the rail industry all over Europe. And this survey is now for the third quarter. It is initiated by our Bavarian member cluster CNA. And if you have some minutes time, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you could participate in this survey in order to broaden the picture of the needs and the topic your company is dealing with regard of sustainability. So, for sure, you can contact ERCI as well. Our contact data are visible in the chat and also on the screen. And that lets me to the first presentation. It is on decarbonizing rail and decarbonizing the rail industry. It is a presentation which is done mainly by Stuart Hall, the head of technical sales of Sulnox, and assisted with Benoit Davone, the founder of Rugby Solution, and the combination of both companies, the type of collaboration for sure is also part of this presentation. So something to say about Stuart. He is a mechanical engineer and experienced sales director. He has previously worked extensively with capital plant, fluid handling, and consumables in several industries, holding various senior roles, including technical director and managing director. Stuart is responsible for developing and leading the Sulnox sales strategy globally. And Benoit is a founder of Rugby Solution and Sulnox distribution partner with over 15 years of experience in chemical specialties industry. Starting with background in logistics and purchasing, progressively evolved into strategic and commercial roles, playing key positions and contributing to business development. The desire for new challenges and greater impact led to create ERCI Solution, a company focused on delivering innovative and sustainable solutions through a network of experts partners. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start sharing my screen now then, and we can actually then get started. Do that, folks? Yes?
Yeah, if you switch on the presentation mode, it will work.
Is that all okay? Great stuff, super. Well, good morning and good afternoon as well. I see some people from India here, so good afternoon to you. Yes, Sulnox are a company that's been brought to market to look at lowering fuel costs, low emissions, and all at zero capex. It achieves that by focusing on your rail operations, mainly around decarbonisation and fuel, with 100% organic fuel conditioner. And I'll explain more about the fuel conditioner as I go through the presentation. At the moment, everybody sitting here, the market that we sit in, the sector we sit in, fuel costs are becoming more and more of a major cost, particularly in the volatile world that we live in now. But on top of that, most countries, a lot of countries tend to have aging systems that are struggling to meet the ever stricter regulations, the need to lower costs, the need to lower emissions. Emissions really are under the spotlight. And all of that can be achieved by lots of different ways. Lots are not zero capex. There's a lot of capex, and they all tend to be a bit slow. So what Sulnox is trying to do is to help with that transition in effect. What Sulnox is looking to do is help with the fuel costs, help with the waste. It's helping to lower emissions. It's helping to improve the efficiency of the engine and extend the life of the engine. Now, all of that sounds amazing. The thing I want to say is it is not a golden bullet. It is not trying to replace solar. It's not trying to replace different fuels like ammonia or hydrogen. What this is a transition tool, because who knows how long and how costly it's going to be to go to those points. So we are helping with all these elements, but we are not the golden bullet. I do not want to overstate how good we are. What Sulnox is 100% organic biodegradable fuel conditioner that, as I said, lowers fuel costs. It varies from market to market. We see in the marine world 3 to 5%. We see in the rail industry around about the 6%. We see in other industries like cars and things like that, we're seeing 10, 15%, even higher sometimes. That's what we're seeing. It lowers your emissions substantially. The one I'm most passionate about is the black soot, getting rid of that, because that's what we breathe, and it helps improve engine performance. I'm not saying that it makes the engine work better. What it does, as you'll see, is it helps maintain the engine performance closer to its maximum efficiency. That's what it's trying to do. And it works on all hydrocarbons, whether that be petrol, whether that be diesel, whether that be residual fuels in marine. It works on all of them. And it's a 2,000 to 1 dosing ratio. Sulnox themselves started around about 2012 and are now floated on the UK and American stock markets. It was brought to market as a company to look for green tech solutions for decarbonisation. And that's what it's done. It just also happens to save money as well. It's backed by some very, very big companies now. But more importantly, I think it's tested by some really very well recognised testing houses such as Lloyd's Register, BV, Socotec, etc. Now, it's available all over the world in varying quantities. So it's kind of, some areas all we tend to feed is the vehicle market, so the volumes are less, but the blue ones, the dark blue ones, are our marine hubs, because marine obviously burns a lot more fuel. But as you can see, we're already in 40 plus countries and growing. We've got over, I think it's 52 patents now in place, something no other additive has. As a fuel conditioner, being that bit different, we're able to get IP. And what that means is we're able to look at all different sectors. It's not just about locomotives. Our biggest sector at the moment is marine, even though that's probably the most conservative sector. Your vessels are tramping all over the world in different locations, and it has the worst fuel, being the residual fuel that nobody else wants. But we also work with fuel stations, with agriculture, with generators, with mining. Anybody that uses hydrocarbon combustion engines can benefit from Sulnox. That is the flexibility of the product. So how does it work? Well, it starts with what's called secondary atomization. Secondary atomization is a process that's been understood since the late 1800s, early 1900s. It is not a Sulnox invention. It's something Sulnox takes advantage of. And it's a known fact that if you can achieve secondary atomization, the fuel that you buy will burn better. Diesel burns from the outside in and burns inefficiently. That's why we get black soot, because it's just not completely burnt. What Sulnox is doing is actually looking to make that burn better. And it does that through this secondary atomization. So what is that? Well, that is actually what the chemistry is doing, is it's within the fuel and it's looking for any free water. So any water that's in your system, in your tanks, in your pipes, it's looking for that. And it scavenges very small quantities of that into the fuel. So what you end up with is lots and lots of tiny emulsified water droplets inside the fuel. Then as you go through the process and you get to the combustion area, you get the primary atomization as the fuel is injected into the combustion chamber. As the piston closes, as the pressure and temperature rise, a matter of milliseconds before you get to the combustion, you get evaporation. And all those little globules of emulsified water burst out. What that does is actually generate more and more tiny particles of fuel rather than a few big particles of fuel. Obviously, we all know that smaller particles, as with your barbecue, etc., with your smaller, it burns quicker. So what you now have is the ability for the fuel to burn quicker. There's a greater surface area, there's a tiny extra amount of oxygen, but the beauty is, what that means is these big globules of fuel are now small and they burn more complete. That is secondary atomization. Now, on top of this core element of the chemistry is that we also add lubricity. And that, as we move down the road of more modern fuels, cleaner fuels, lubricity is becoming more of an issue. We're doing a lot of work with HVO at the moment, because obviously that is a drier fuel. So it brings benefits, but it also brings problems. Sulnox overcomes that by adding lubricity. In fact, Eastern Pacific have just done some tests on a low sulfur HVO, and that showed 22% additional lubricity. Then on top of that is the added detergency. Sulnox is not an aggressive chemistry, as you'll see in a second. It is a very gentle chemistry. But over the first few weeks, first month or so of using the product, it cleans the components. So it's not making the engine work any better than it was designed to. It's making the engine be in a condition that allows it to operate at its most efficient. That's what Sulnox does. So it keeps the engine parts clean. We've got lots and lots of examples of that actually taking place. Now, I keep talking about this world fuel conditioner, but we all know as engineers, it's an additive. So what is the difference between a traditional additive, the kind of additive that I put in my car 40 years ago when I was 17, and basically all I wanted to do was the car to go with a bit more oomph? Well, traditional additives are certainly not biodegradable and certainly not organic. They come from petroleum derived or metal based backgrounds. They have solvents in them. They change the cetane. They make the engine burn hotter, which is why engine manufacturers don't like them. What Sulnox is the opposite end. Sulnox is very organic, very gentle, totally biodegradable, and therefore does not change anything. Now, the key part to all of that is about fuel spec. A lot of traditional additives take fuel out of specification. What Sulnox does, it does whilst maintaining it in specification. So it's been tested over and over and over again in all different market sectors to the relevant standards. And it shows repeatedly 100% of the time that if you add Sulnox into the fuel, that stays in specification. Now, why does that matter? That is because the likes of your engine manufacturers, your insurance companies, your regulators, they all basically say that if you're going to use an additive or a fuel conditioner like Sulnox, the fuel has to stay in spec, or else you can affect warranties, you can affect your insurance. Sulnox keeps it in spec. That's why that is so important, and we are constantly testing against new standards. We do have some letters of no objection. Engine manufacturers tend to come from an angle of, we don't like using additives, but if you want to, you can. And invariably they say, as long as you hold it in specification, we don't have a problem. That is why this testing is absolutely critical at the very first point that when you look to use Sulnox. And that is what Colas Rail did. Colas Rail started right at the beginning, looking at the fuel and how it met with specifications, right through to now where they've adopted. Colas Rail in the UK are adopting Sulnox across their fleet of engines. So Colas Rail are a leading UK company. They did this evaluation over 9 months, so it was not a short-term thing. They did it on 4 tampers and they did it on 6 diesel locos. So as you can see, it's not a one-off test where we could have just been lucky. It's a very detailed test. And to achieve that test, we obviously delivered the Sulnox, which is delivered in small containers. It's a splash mix. It's easy to handle. Because it's organic, it's totally safe. There's no legislation you have to particularly worry about. There is no special handling or anything like that. And you then add it either into tanks on the side, your storage tanks, or you can add it directly into the engine tanks. And it's dosed at this 2,000 to 1 ratio. And as I say, it's just a very simple splash mix. There's no need for pumps or anything. What we then also had, oops, let me get rid of that. What we then also had was emission monitoring. They didn't just check the fuel consumption, they checked the emission monitoring. So to look at that in a bit more detail, what they actually did was they added the fuel they added the Sulnox into the fuel into 22,500 litre fuel tanks. So it was properly mixed and it was consistent for the whole test. There's this company called a Tester, who are a UK independent analysis company doing the emission monitoring, and they also then give Sulnox every week the details of the engine performance, weather conditions, load on the engine, etc., etc. So there was a very detailed analysis taken place. And then all that was shared back with Colas Rail. Over that time, over that 8-9 months, they saw a 4.5% improvement in their consumption. That is what they saw as their average. They actually saw higher than that in places. That was their average. But more importantly, they saw the greenhouse gases come down, and they saw the particulate come down. And if the particulates come down, then you're burning more fuel. That is secondary atomization in action. And that is what the operators reported. They did not see the black smoke like they were used to. So that is the key part here. The emissions have come down and the fuel improvement has gone up. So what that then leads to is a return on investment. If you look purely in commercial terms, that is then a return on investment. So what you have is the likes of Paul Conway, the head of engineering. He recommended to the board of Colas Rail that we should adopt. He was backed by Dan, the head of energy and carbon. Both these people put forward and backed the decision, and the board of Colas Rail have made that decision to adopt across the fleet. Obviously driven very much by the commercial aspects, the fuel saving, but then the added benefit of the emissions and the improvement in engine condition. So that then has led to helping with their higher fuel costs. It's helping with the pressure they're under from local environmentalists on the emissions side of things. And it means their equipment is actually requiring less maintenance. It's staying in better condition. They're getting less breakdowns. All of these things is what they're reporting. So that is what Sulnox achieves through this secondary atomization, this improvement in lubricity, and the improvements in detergency. And it's very, very simple to apply. So thank you very much, folks. I will stop sharing now. You've got the contact details here, which I know will be shared with you later, but I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. We will start with some pre-prepared questions, maybe the first two, and then I just saw a question from the chat. I have to copy it into the slide. Starting with the first question of what made Colas Rail confident enough to adopt it fleet-wide?
So when you talk about confidence, the first confident bit is that actually I think the improvement in the engine condition, the fact that we're not harming the engine at all. Then on top of that, you then see, much as I'd love to say emissions was the number one. The next was the fuel saving, and then what we say in the UK, the icing on the cake. The one is then the emissions. So the combination of those three things. But I think every time I've spoke to them, it started with there is no effect on the engines. Actually, no, it was the opposite. The engines actually improved. So that was number one. What kind of fleets or engine types? As I said right in the slide, it's all fuel types. We're working with biofuels, HVOs, in the marine sector with high HSFO, with diesels, with petrols, both European type and continental type. So basically it's all fuel types and all engine types, whether it be large marine, two-stroke engines, down to my lawnmower sitting out in the shed. So that is one of the things. Actually, can just add something there very quickly. One of the things that Sulnox also does, we're finding, is it adds stability. An example of that is my lawnmower. I don't have to drain the fuel out at the end of the season. I can actually go, leave the fuel in there, go back 3 months, 4 months later, one pull, and it starts straight away. We maintain stability, which helps a lot with biofuels because they are not as stable. How much does the system cost per tonne NOx removed? I can't give you an exact answer on that now. What I can tell you is that Sulnox works out at round about £7.50 that's per metric ton. So it's basically per litre, it's $15 per litre. Sorry, I'm talking about American here because I spent so much time on the marine sector. $15 per litre, and it's a 2,000 to 1 ratio. So from that, we can then obviously extrapolate the cost per litre to add the additive, and then also from that, then look at the NOx. But obviously, the NOx removed will change from location to location, operation to operation. We know it reduces NOx, but we see quite a range in that NOx, because that's about removal of or lowering the temperature within the exhaust area. That's where the NOx is generated.
Yeah, there's an additional question also. What about time in the engine to achieve optimal effectiveness when Sulnox is added?
Okay, so that's what one of the more, I wouldn't say the awkward things. It actually starts immediately. It starts immediately looking at the combustion improvement, but the areas such as the extra lubricity and the detergency and the cleaning, they take a few weeks, and that could be anything from 2 to 3 weeks to 3 months, depending on the fuel type and the engine type and the engine condition. So we tend to recommend people run an operation, run a trial for 3 months. The reason is that gives chance for Sulnox to have its full effect, but also it allows us to look at it and remove any outliers in the data. The days when actually the engine wasn't doing very much, or it wasn't pulling any load, or days when it's pulling really excessive load. So we take those outliers out. That gives you time to get enough data, so you've got a proper set of data to judge against.
Yeah, before coming to the next question from the chat, I want to outline the collaboration situation between Rete Solution and Sulnox. Why is Rete Solution in partnership with Sulnox? Maybe that's a question for Benoit.
Thanks, Lutz. Yes, well, Rete Solution have this focus to work on the really different type of industries, and most of the concern of our industries are the reduction of the carbon footprint, but which way to take. And the partnership with Sulnox was quite easy to implement, as it is easy products to implement. There is zero capex, and it's cover a lot of industry, from marine, power generation, construction, road transport, and all these activities are linked to Rete Solution. So it's one product to help reducing the carbon footprint, zero capex, and making some savings, reducing the carburant, the fuel consumption.
Coming to the next question, what changes have been observed in over the past months?
Yes, but past.
Go on, Benoit.
Yes, Sulnox is here. Yeah, sorry. No, what I've been working since quite a long time with Sulnox now, and what I've been changed is that the pitch remained the same, but they have been doing extremely good work on specific case studies per industries, and important companies, global-wide companies, have been showing and using the product, demonstrating that it works. And since the start and now, the Sulnox product is just booming.
Yeah. Coming to the next question from the chat, what are the considerations on the engine condition before switching to include Sulnox Eco? Does the engine need to be in a new condition with low wear?
I'll actually give two answers. I'll give two examples of that to show the extreme, because it works across the board. If you take Ghana, this is getting massive traction in Ghana, Sulnox is. And in Ghana, you have very poor quality fuel, and you tend to have older engines. They are seeing actually in excess of 15% improvement and massive reduction in black soot. The other extreme of that is my car sitting out there, which is a Volvo V60, 2.5 years old, electronic. That I have let the odometer run since the day we started. I did 3 months without Sulnox, and then I'm doing it, and that is showing a 12.5% improvement in fuel consumption. So that's a new modern car against older cars with poor quality fuel. The reality is that it works on all types. I will add that I do tend to see greater examples of improvement on older engines, older cars, older, less efficient fuel. It seems to have a better effect, but it works on all types regardless. If you take a brand new engine, of course, things like the cleaning effect, you won't see because the engine is in perfect condition. All we're then doing is keeping it clean. So you won't actually see that in any data or in any observations. So I actually tend to prefer an engine that's been running a few years, kind of, that we do any trials on. Does it work with 5-tier that uses AdBlue? Absolutely, it does. In fact, whilst we've not done any detailed analysis of this, the observations are that because we lower the greenhouse gases, particularly the NOx, the AdBlue actually drops. So we don't replace AdBlue, and we can't because that's regulation. What we do see is that AdBlue consumption does drop a little, purely because you're lowering that exhaust temperature, and that is what controls the consumption of AdBlue. So yes, it works with Tier 5 engines, and yes, it helps with your AdBlue consumption.
Yeah, I have another question for you. What is the particulate matter that we suffer within the UK with the diesel fleets? By how much can Sulnox reduce this using, for example, a Cummins or Perkins diesel fleet in operation on UK fleets, e.g. midlife fleets, about 20-plus-year-old? We have explore filter devices, hence the question.
Yeah, so again, it's observational, so please take that for what it is. But the observational we have from, particularly in the UK, is that the filter changes are extended. The time when the sensor comes up and says you need to change your filter, that actually gets extended. And it's obvious because if you've got less particulate going through, the filter won't block up as quickly. So the kind of, what's it called, where when a lorry goes into lower power mode to get you home, that actually happens less. That's what gets reported back to us, that the filters do not clog up as much, so that safe return home mode does not get instigated as often. So that is one of the add-on indirect benefits of Sulnox.
Yeah, thank you very much for all this presentation and the answers to the several questions we received from the chat. I see no more question at the moment in the chat. For sure, if you have questions, there are contact data available. For sure, you could still use the chat to raise your question, and we are quite good in time, so we have the chance also to answer questions which come later on. And for sure, we are expecting also your question for the second presentation, and that lets me to introduce the second presentation of this webinar. It is made by Polly Bycroft Gregory, supported by Alistair Gregory and Paul Riley, and it's on the O8E project, diesel to battery conversion. And give a short introduction. Polly is one of 3 directors of Positive Traction, and she leads the business development and marketing. Prior to this, Polly and fellow director Alistair Gregory ran luxury train conversion company Independent Rail, which designed and built the Sherman's train set, currently owned and operated by Locomotives Service Limited. 5 years ago, Alistair was part of a group that acquired RMS Locotec, a locomotive leasing company with a fleet of conventional diesel 08 shunters. Realizing the growing need to manage the obsolescence of aging railway equipment, they teamed up with Paul Riley, who has extensive expertise in both the rail and renewable sector, to find a solution. Thus, Positive Traction was formed. Polly, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that. Thank you for inviting us to be here today, and great presentation about Sulnox, Stuart. That was really interesting, and Benoit. Let me see. No, just share. Let me see if I can share my screen with you. How's that?
Good. Screen is visible. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a video later on, so I just want to make sure that when that plays, that if you could give me a thumbs up that you can hear it, so that we're all okay. We'll play. Right, so hello everybody. My name is Polly Gregory, and we're here today to talk to you about positive traction and the O8E project and what the technology involved in that can be applied to further in the future. So first of all, as Stuart said before in his presentation, we're coming to a point in specifically railway, but all across the world in all sorts of applications where fuel is becoming an increasingly difficult topic and obstacle, and also managing obsolescence of old equipment and infrastructure. So we need to come up with solutions in order to tackle emissions, tackle the climate crisis. The UK government aims to reach net zero by 2050. I'm sure other countries have similar goals. The UK Railway has their own goals for reaching net zero. Along with tackling the climate crisis, in general, there are a lot of outdated designs, safety issues, visibility issues, functionality, repair, downtime, maintenance, all of these things that are becoming trickier day to day, that we, as Positive Traction, are looking at tackling. So that's kind of where we come in with our battery conversions. So the key driving forces obviously are carbon reduction, sustainability and future-proofing. So not only are we looking at changing the power source, we're looking at levelling up the approach to locomotive use as a whole, as a whole approach. The key phrase that we like to use is that we're managing obsolescence. So there are so many diesel and diesel electric locomotives that exist already in yards, in sidings, in quarries, in ports, that are sitting idle because they can't be repaired, or they're in use but fuel is becoming more of a problem, and we need to think of a way to bridge the gap between old and new. Not only have we changed the fuel source, we've massively improved the user experience as a whole. Like I said before, we've looked at safety, visibility, comfort of the user, and all of these things. And also it saves money in the long run. The cost of a conversion is significantly less than buying a new battery locomotive, and you're mitigating the costs of fuel and fuel storage and possible future penalties, along with cutting down downtime, cutting down maintenance and all of that. But it also retains its classification and its familiarity because we've maintained the driving controls as the same, the weight's the same, the overall size is the same. So therefore the classification of the locomotive stays the same. So in terms of retraining drivers, site restrictions, they all remain the same. So you've got kind of an easier transition than introducing something entirely new into your site. So the first project that we did as Positive Traction was which is our prototype and our kind of showpiece to prove for the proof of concept, to prove that, you know, it can work, and of the goals were carbon reduction, improvement in tractive effort, operational improvement, improved safety, reduce maintenance, reduce cost of ownership, and improve user experience. But I will stress that whilst we're talking about the O8E, it was a prototype. We saw it as a really good opportunity to choose something that is heavily relied on still in a lot of UK yards, and I think in some places in continental Europe as well, as a test bed for the design of this technology and how it can function as a concept. So it was launched in October of 2023, and we had a really great launch at Barrow Hill Roundhouse in Chesterfield in the UK. And there was the UK rail industry there and the national press, and it was very well received. And then after that, we did extensive testing, rigorous testing, to make sure that it was going to do what we said it was going to do, and we did, and we worked out areas for improvement and goals, and we were able to monitor battery life and performance and tractive effort and all these things. And then since then, it's also been on multiple site trials. It's been to Watley Quarry in Somerset, which is an aggregates site, and it's well known for being particularly challenging. Strong gradients. You need to pull a lot of weight. Kind of really tricky for a site for shunters to operate, and it actually ended up outperforming their diesel 08s that they had on site. It could pull more, yeah, so it kind of proves that it's an easy transition, but it adds a little bit of extra ability as well. So I'm just going to make sure this works. Hi, we're Positive Traction, and this is the 08E. Yeah. Shunter OH308 dates back to the 1950s and was last in service for Caledonian Sleeper at Inverness. In need of new pistons and a crankshaft, it lay dormant and unusable. However, this made it a prime candidate for becoming the 08E prototype. The Positive Traction team recognised its potential and got to work. The main change to the vehicle is conversion. It helps sites move towards or achieve net zero goals, and there are no more fuel costs or fuel storage costs and no future penalties. The batteries charge from a regular 3-phase supply, so there's no requirement to change site infrastructure to make it work. Although, if you want to install fast charging points, you can do that too. Our design is modular. PT power pods can be supplied in 2, 4 or 6, depending on usage needs, and are catered to shift patterns, removing the need to recharge in the middle of a work. 10 minutes by forklift. Sorry. Our PT controls, such as automatically updating the new LED tail marker lights, depending on which direction you're heading in. The 08E also has more tractive effort than a traditional 08. But that's not all. We recognise the opportunity to not only upgrade the power source of 08308, but improve multiple elements for potential customers. Without the diesel engine and the battery pods not taking as much space, the bonnet was lowered to give 360-degree visibility. We also added walkways either side of the bonnet with guardrails for working at height. Taking away the diesel engine also meant taking away a lot of weight, so we added 14 tons of carefully designed steel plate to ensure the overall weight stayed the same, as to not jeopardise the tractive effort or classification.
We replaced the bearings on the rods, which used to be prolific for dripping oil in depots, to self-lubricating and low-maintenance Vesconite. The OAE is not completely silent, but there is a lot less potential for noise pollution, which is ideal for depots in built-up areas. We also gave the cab a little bit of a makeover. The driving controls are mostly the same, meaning retraining time is minimal, but we've made the space more comfortable for drivers, including adding HVAC. So why not just buy new? The price of conversion is significantly less than buying a new battery locomotive. Lots of sites already have O8s they own and are unable to find replacement parts. Lots of sites have O8s and like how they operate, but are conscious of using diesel. Positive Traction are managing obsolescence and making shunter use as sustainable as possible, whilst still maintaining a part of British rail heritage. For further information, visit positivetraction.co.uk or get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Great. So that was just a little bit of a story of how we came about, how we started. So I'll just go over the changes that we made to the O8 in a little bit more detail for you. So yeah, so as I said before, the bonnet used to be really restricting how much you could see. So once we took the engine out, we had this huge envelope of space where we could lower the bonnet and actually be able to see. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with diesel O8s or have ever driven them, but if you have, you'll know that it's incredibly difficult to see around the bonnet when you're actually driving it. You either have to look through a tiny little window or put your head out, or out the side, which is obviously dangerous. So what we've done is we've cut down the bonnet height, added windows over the top there, so that you can see. Inside this section here is where the PT powertrain lives, which is basically the brains, but I'll talk a bit more about that in a few slides time. And so the lower bonnet, and that houses all the equipment, including the PT power pods, which are the power source, the batteries, and then there's a new air compressor and air dry. BMAC LED tail marker lights there. I don't if you saw on the video, we had to take away a lot of the weight, so we had to add 14 tons of steel plate onto the deck to make the O8 weigh the same as it did before, but it gave us the opportunity to level the deck out, so it's a really nice level surface to put all the equipment on, and it's all designed in a way that it fits together like a jigsaw. So if you ever did need to take it apart, it's all in bits rather than one massive chunk. Existing traction motors and brakes retained. Low maintenance Vesconite bearings. Yeah, so tackling obsolescence as a whole, we were looking at all of the problems. So the rod bearings used to drip oil all over depots, which is obviously a hazard. So we looked at a solution for that, and one of them is Vesconite, which is a South African company who create self-lubricating bearings. So before traditional O8s, you wouldn't have any space to work at height around the bonnet. So we've added the walkway and the handrails for increased safety. An auxiliary converter housed in there too. And then we also have windows at the back so that you can see both ways when you're driving. We also have coupling. This isn't on the diagram, but we have coupling cameras. So and different cameras so that you can see where you're going as well. But yes, and then the driving controls in the cab are the same, so retraining is fast. So not only are there benefits to the vehicle itself, but also the infrastructure associated to it and site benefits. So there's no fuel storage costs. There's decreased risk of fuel leaks, anything like that, like oil dripping onto depots. Driver retraining is minimal. We've actually sent it to a few sites sites where I think the drivers were a bit hesitant. They were happy with the 08s. They didn't really want to try anything new. But then once they'd had a go, they were like, oh, actually, it's the same. It's just less noisy. And it starts up, and you don't have to leave it idling on site all day. And they actually really liked it, especially because we put HVAC in there. So on particularly cold or particularly warm days, they'll be comfortable. Yeah, there's no reclassification or recertification needed because it retains its right as an 08. Yeah, and we are managing obsolescence as a whole. So the power source is batteries, and the way that we've designed it on the 08 is to arrange them in power pods. So the pods house the batteries and they are able to be charged on board the vehicle. We just use a regular 3-phase supply, but if you did have a fast charging point as part of your infrastructure or levelling up in terms of moving towards battery power on your depot, you can do that too. They are capable of that. But then also they can be taken out. So if you had a particularly work heavy site where you really needed 6 pods, I mean, I should say that 6 pods are designed to last a full shift. But if you did have, constant 24-hour activity, you could have some pre-charged pods waiting and charged and ready to go on the shelf. So you could just swap them in. And yeah, so they are lithium ferrophosphate, which have a longer lifespan and better charging qualities than some of the others. We chose them because they are relatively inert. So a lot of people ask us, one of the early on questions is, what's the risk of combustion? What happens if they set on fire? We hear these horror stories about EVs and stuff going up in flames, but we chose these because the risk of that is basically non-existent. They can catch fire in the same way that anything else could, but within themselves, they're stable. So the downside of lithium ferrophosphate to an average consumer is that they're heavy, but for us that wasn't a problem because we ended up having to add more weight. So that wasn't an issue for us. What else can I say? Yep. Oh yes, and so thinking about power pods as a replacement for the fuel tank. So in this case, in an 08's case, you can get up to 6 pods, which is 600 kilowatt hours on an 08. But that's just because of the envelope of space that's available. If you're looking at a bigger locomotive with a bigger space available, it can be whatever it is, and it's just a vessel to be incorporated into whichever locomotive it is installed in. So I'm just going to get my colleague Paul Riley to talk about PT powertrain because he can talk about it in more detail than I can.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Paul Riley. I'm the engineering director of Positive Traction. Really, just the slide there shows all the features, or a number of the features of the powertrain that were developed, and we show there some of the key components. But I'd just like to emphasise things Tom Polly's been talking about, which is the flexibility and modularity of the PT powertrain and the various elements. And why is that important? It's because this is the bridge between the train driver and the traction motors. And the traction motors come in a large variety of different sizes and shapes and designs dependent on the duty, the age of the locomotive, the origin of manufacture, and so on. So we've tried to make the powertrain as universal as possible, and so providing the interface to whatever motor type is on the locomotive that we're converting. Similarly, the driver controls also show a wide variety of design. Again, depends on the locomotive design, on the culture, on the country of origin. And so we designed a common interface so that the actual interface driver, the driver interface, I should say, remains the same. So it's the same controls, they're in the same location, it has the same feel as the original locomotive. and that's kind of been instrumental in the adoption of this technology, because, as Polly said, the amount of retraining is minimised. And the powertrain itself has all the things built into it that you would expect. We can control both AC and DC motors. We can control regenerative braking. We've got slip-slide control, and we have comprehensive monitoring. And in terms of diagnostics, that's all built into there as well, and all the basic management of the battery system as well as the powertrain itself. Okay,
cool.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, so kind of going off what Paul said is that it's really important to remember that the 08E is just a proof of concept, and this can be applied to such a wide range of different applications. And so I'm just going to get my other co-director, Alistair, to just talk about that.
Hello. Yeah, so the main reason that we kicked this project off in the first place was because we ended up with the elephant's graveyard of broken diesel locomotives and long lead time components to try and get them reactivated again. And that's why we went down the road of a battery conversion. We looked at repowering with diesel and other options, but we decided that if we were going to put a significant investment into these locomotives to keep them in service for another 10, 15, 20 years, re-engineering with diesel wasn't really the solution for that. We have industrial locomotives as well as 08s and 09s, and we're already putting proposals together for customers that we lease locomotives to and customers that want their own locomotives converting, so that the tech doesn't just apply to an 08, and we're already putting proposals together in this country, but we're also conscious of the fact that there is a shortage of shunting locomotives in continental Europe. So we're looking at putting locomotives as a positive. Yes, we know 6 locomotives in yard service at various little in either large classification yards or small grain elevators that get used a couple of times a year. And they're all going to look for different options, because it's been great for the last 40 years. These locomotives have just worked, been relatively cheap to maintain, but as they wear out, they're getting very expensive to replace. And South and Central America are very good at manufacturing locomotives, but they have kind of legacy fleets all over that require significant work that they'll struggle to get to a place that'll do it for them cost effectively. So they could use the Hulk, re-engineer it with this equipment, and then that gives them a new asset that they can give a new lease of life. Pretty much every site that we go to, we're always on the bloodline for tractive effort and or horsepower. Multiple working systems, introduce any shunters, and then obviously as new locomotives come along, they all have their bespoke systems. The technology that we're developing, you can either remote control or quite easily with use of a CAN bus, and that'll make it a lot easier for companies to add that little bit more power where so you may not even need a second locomotive. You may just need 2 traction motors, 3 wheels and a concrete block, and then you just couple it up to your next locomotive, and that will give you the power that you need for the extra heavy loads on the short duties. And then we've used a locomotive on other sites as a mobile air compressor. You can use it as a mobile power station, and if you need to power a part of your workshop, you've got a 3-phase static converter there that you can plug into, and it's also got other options for military and defence. We maintain bits of kit that have very similar systems to railway systems, and this is kind of direct impact that. Great. Yeah, so that's your further applications.
Okay. yeah, so moving forward, what we want to do, what we're aiming to do on our own, but also potentially with collaborators, with partners, is research and development, investigating obviously different locomotive types, but also look into the battery technology itself, looking at different types of batteries, life recharging times, optimizing energy storage, power electronics development, all of these things, life cycle assessment, all these things that make the concept itself more future proof, increase the longevity and the reliability, keeping up with the times as much as we possibly can, while still maintaining what people are familiar with, what people like, what people know. So kind of like a bridge between the two. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to our presentation. Thank you for having us today. There's our website there and our contact details. So if you have any further questions or you'd like to start a conversation with us, then there you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Polly, Paul, and Alistair. For sure, we will also provide you the contact data with our follow email we normally send out a few days after the webinar. It's now my task to lead the Q&A, and we have collected some questions, starting with the first one. What are the benefits of conversion over buying new?
Well, the main benefit is that it's a fraction of the cost. So a new a new battery locomotive can be really costly, and a conversion is I don't know how to. I mean, it's hamstring because it depends on what you're talking about. I can get a new expensive. And then also the familiarity thing. So if you've got some on site, your staff know how to use it. Sustainability, power station, it's materials and through using new tech that doesn't need to be replaced as often and all of that. So.
Yeah, come to the second question. How else can this technology
as well as just contact like any old electric and mobile air compressor, mobile power station, whatever. It's
sorry, and it can also be adopted from existing electric locomotives, providing some energy storage, so you can move away from the electrified lines and work in yards or in sidings or in freight lines that don't have electrification.
Yeah, and for sure, normally shunting yards do not have electrification in many cases, and well, I see also a huge potential. If you look at the Central Europe market, there are lots of shunters or older shunters that might be interesting for your business model. Next question. There are three questions in one. The latest management system for your system to avoid excess heat and increase lifestyle.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the difference in weight between a battery conversion and a standard conversion with the O8 is about 14.5 tons. So when you take the engine and generator out, it's quite a big, heavy lump. Even though your batteries are heavy, they're still not quite heavy enough. So we had to add about 14 ton steel plate, which actually is quite handy for us because it gives you a nice deck that you can bolt to. The question of how long the battery lasts is actually a really good one. So when we started this process, we consulted with some of the people that we lease diesel locomotives to, and we asked them, what kind
duty cycle does your locomotive do? How long is it in service? And some of the answers we got back were terrifying. They said, oh, we use it 12 hours a day, we use it 24 hours a day. And when you drive down into that, it might be running for 12 hours a day and it might be idling for 12 hours a day, but the actual switching operations is far less. So when we were down in Watley Quarry, we were basically going up and down their steepest gradient with the maximum loads available, and we were charging it for trips into Quarry, and we were recharging them when it was in the yard of the railway. They move a carriage around here, or they'll take a locomotive to fuel, or they'll assemble a train, and we probably charged it twice in 2 months, because when they weren't using it, they just switched it off. When you plug it into charge it runs the auxiliary systems and the HVAC in the cab. So where sometimes with the 08 shunters, they were running a 90-litre diesel engine. With this, when you plug it in to charge it up, that three-phase supply takes a tap and it keeps your cab warm or cool depending on what you want. So that was also quite good. And thermal management system, yeah. So there is a thermal management tool. Really get to a point where the batteries over temp. The way that the modules are air cooled. The biggest issue that we found was heating when they are charging. So when the battery's being discharged or charged, natural kind of heat is there, and that's not an issue. But when you park it up for a couple of days and it's very cold, and we found this in Barrow Hill Roundhouse, which in Chesterfield has its own microclimate. It's usually about 5 degrees less than anywhere else in England. When it was very cold, we struggled to commence charging. So there are heating mats in the pods. If your charger, if your temperature is low, then the heating pads will warm the modules to the point that then the charging will take over.
What's the likely time frame for a conversion?
And so for an OA, because it's a known entity for us, it's about 5 months. But obviously with other things, it would have to be investigated because they would be new to us. So,
but I guess between, obviously, depending on the condition of the locomotive, when you actually start the combustion, it's probably, I think, as an envelope, 6 to 9 months. For a mainline locomotive.
Yeah.
And that includes the test and commissioning.
Yeah. You mentioned the aspect, Polly, of noise reduction. What is the quantitative potential of noise reduction in decibel, maybe?
Do you know what the decibels is? I mean, I know it's significantly quieter. I don't know in terms of actual measurement.
Quantitative, I don't know, but I guess with a shunter, it's enough. Vehicle doesn't like that when it's idling. You can certainly well built down into seagulls, I would think.
Yeah, I mean it's not silent because it would be a bit dangerous if it was completely silent. But there is noise to it, but you nowhere near as much as before.
You can't get rid of the track noise and the whine of the gearboxes.
All right, that is the next question. As you are already aware, Vanguard have developed their hydrogen conversion to a Class 08 loco. It raises a broader question of repowering from diesel to more sustainable solutions. What are your thoughts of the market development of battery and hydrogen for local applications? They have their places and positives and negatives in the market. It needs to be cleaned up and more efficient.
Yeah, I'll probably take this one. Yeah, so we actually have a really good relationship with the guys at Vanguard. I guess they're specialising in hydrogen, which isn't something that we really have any experience of. So the 08E has been designed to basically accept any form of energy source. It doesn't have to be a battery pack. So if Vanguard have a fuel cell that they want to put in, provided we can get the DC link right, then we'd be really interested to try something like that. I think you're quite right. There's a problem out there, and there's probably more than one answer to the question. And the more people that are sensibly looking at it, the better. And the more people that want to collaborate, the better. And Vanguard have been really good, as have the guys at previously Vivarel and now Great Western. It's almost like a cottage industry of locomotive re-engineers, and we all seem to play together quite well, and that helps, because there's not a lot of data out there when it comes to doing something like this. And one thing that we've found doing this conversion is we're all quite good at blowing stuff up. So the ability to compare notes with people like Vanguard, people like Great Western, has been invaluable to us, really.
Yeah. Mike Hammer from Belvoir Rail says really thank you in the chat for your good presentation. It'd be keen to strike out after comms as we at Belvoir Rail operate in the innovation space in rail. It would be good to see if we could collaborate. Apologies for the sales pitch. It was a question from him, the last one, but thought I'd ask. He also sent the details, and maybe Mike, you have to add something, that you could simply open your mic and comment. But it seems not to be the case. So then I see no more questions from the chat at the moment. Oh, thanks for the opportunity. I'll reach out, he wrote. And that leads me to say also to you, thank you for your very interesting presentation, for the very interesting project. And that leads me to come to some further information on ERCI activities. First, I kindly ask you to fill out a short feedback questionnaire. It should be done in about 2 minutes. The most important question for us is if you have some topics for further ERCI webinars in the future. If you have some ideas, please let us know. So the link to this questionnaire should be put into the chat in a few seconds, so that I will proceed. The webinar here is recorded, or will be recorded. The recorded video of the webinar you will see in a few days at our ERCI YouTube channel of the STARS project, as usual, and all the links you will find later in the chat. So coming to announce the next ERCI webinar, as far as we know, now we have the summer break, and we have already dated one webinar about the human factor in rail, and the first presentation is already confirmed. The second we are working on. The date will be the 8th of October, and the registration link is already available, and hopefully also in a few seconds in the chat. Some events of ERCI, the ERCI Innovation Awards, and I guess these ERCI Innovation Awards might be also important for positive traction, because we received an application from them for this year, but the evaluation has not been finished yet, so fingers crossed. And the awarding ceremony will take place on 30 September in the afternoon, followed by a networking cocktail during the Expo Ferroviaria Rail Fair show in Milan this year. and our host organization is the ERCI Partner Cluster DTEC Fair. So then, Guido, may I ask you also to put into the chat the feedback question there? That would be great. And the registration link to the next ERCI webinar. And coming to an activity which is still under planning and organization and finalizing the agenda, we will have an business mission to Canada, to Montreal and to Toronto from the 8th to the 12th of September. The agenda is in preparation, almost finalized. It will include meeting with rail manufacturers, transport operators, and public transportation authorities, stakeholders. 12 companies are already registered. We have some space left. We are expecting to be total 20 persons. Further information and registration is possible on the ERCI website. And the new deadline for registration will be the 18th of July. That means a few days left to think about. So then ERCI will be present with its numerous ERCI member clusters at following events in the next months. There will be the Railway Forum in Berlin from 2nd to the 4th of September. We will be there, Berlin Partner will be there, a number, AC Styria will be there, a number of companies mainly from Germany and Austria will be there. You could meet us at booth T06, that's the Berlin Partner booth in Berlin. Then Berlin Partner as well as Rail S, together with the Economic Development Agency of the Saxony state, will be present at the Trapo Rail Fair show in Gdansk in Poland from 23rd to 26th of September. Maybe there will be also in UK pavilion as in previous years, but you could investigate it by yourself by visiting the Trapo Fair webpage. And as already mentioned, you could meet us, DTEC Fair and ERCI meet at booth J30 during the Expo Ferroviaria in Milan by the end of September and beginning of October. You find all these dates also at our website, at the ERCI website. So then funding opportunities, I have 2 slides on that. It is on ongoing ESA calls, the European Space Agency, the use of satellite, for instance, for intermodal transport and for rail. There are 2 open calls for feasibility studies and for demonstration projects. Some activities are going on, also with support from ERCI, especially in the Space for Rail call. The deadlines are quite different. The closing date for the intermodal transport is on 12th of September, and for Space for Rail by the end of this year. So then also, the big topic, Horizon Europe. The working program 2025 is published, and you can find under this link here the information of the European Commission. For sure, you will receive also by cluster each work program, including for cluster 5, climate, energy, and mobility. I had a call some days ago with one representative of Deutsche Bahn being responsible for this research and development activities, and he already said, "Oh, we have some topics in mind during this work program which might be interesting to you. We will keep you informed about this as well." So. Coming to Deutsche Bahn, I hadn't prepared a slide for that, but I will include it for the follow-up mail. There is an ongoing challenge launched by DB Mindbox, which is especially interesting for startup companies. All this competition will be held in English. I will add this information also into this presentation later on and keep you informed. Then some projects, and Guido already switched on his camera because I intend to give him the floor to explain these two major activities, ERCI clusters and or ERCI by itself are involved in current EU projects. Guido.
Thank you, Lutz, for this. Yes, I will just say some words on two European projects. The first one is Leader 2030, which is coordinated by ERCI, this organization organizing this webinar in particular, with other partners coming from France, Germany, and Turkey. The Leader 2030 is a project where we want to suggest a measure to contribute to the strengthening and for the resilience of European supply chain for raw materials for the railway sector. So what we are doing is a four-step project, and we are almost at the end of the project, where we have collected all the disruption that industries have seen up to now. But the intention is also to suggest measure in order to be more resilient and strong for the delivery of the Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking project of research and development. This is mainly this Leader 2030. I would just say that end of September we are organizing a train from Italy, from Florence to Dresden, where we will have a global conference on this Leader 2030 project. This is also a way to visit some specific point along this trip, the base tunnel of Brenner, or some chemical industries in Bavaria. Next slide, Lutz, please.
Yeah. I guess you mentioned by the end of September, but I think the train will be at the end of October, isn't it?
End of October, yes.
Yeah.
I'm mixing Expo Ferroviaria with this Leader 2030 activity. The second project is called Idealist, which aims at empowering SMEs for in tackling supply chain disruption again, and to acquire information and using advanced technologies. So some traditional SMEs are defining some needs, and tech-savvy SMEs or big companies will help them. It's a way to increase again the resilience of the whole supply chain. Here we are in three key ecosystem: energy-intensive industries, aerospace and defense, and mobility, transport, and automotive. The consortium is coordinated by the French cluster SIM, and we are 14 partners. Next slide. I will just say something about two of the main events that we are organizing in this project. The first one is called Hack and Match. It's like an hackathon and matchmaking event, where we define some topics. We have already worked on advanced materials and artificial intelligence. Now, from the 1st of September, we are launching this Hack and Match number 3 on energy saving. And you see the dates. The call for challenges will start the 1st of September, and after 1 month, we will have the call for solution. And then in mid-November, we will have all the real Hack and Match. Then there will be an awarding ceremony. Next slide.
Yeah, that is already the. I have no slide for this
Okay.
other. Yeah. Maybe you
I
can say
sent it
some
to you,
personal.
but okay. So
Yeah.
the second, the missing slide was on Lex, which is the learning expedition, where we are inviting SMEs to come to Dresden. There is a voucher of 500 euros for those SMEs interested in going to Dresden, where we will have some visit, some pitching session, and also the participation to this conference organized by the LEAD 2030 project. So we are mixing and putting together the strengths of the two European projects in order to facilitate and improve the opportunities for SMEs to grow and to survive in this difficult world where we are. Thank you, Lutz.
Oh, all right. When I will find your additional slide for sure, I will put it into the general presentation as well, and to be sent to you later on. And yeah, in the meanwhile, I found the call for challenges of DB Mindbox. There are two open, especially interesting for startups, also for international startups. The one is on human resources, and the other is on long distance transport. And the link to this web page I already put into the chat. I only have to push the button so that it is visible to all of you. And coming then to the end of this webinar, so the next one we already know is on 8th of October. The topic is human factor in rail. That also has a good match with the current challenge of DB Mindbox. Then we are expecting to have more webinars in this year. Maybe we could reach out to have one on the 17th of September, but it is not quite clear if we could do so. The topics will be of next webinars could be non-destructive testing and process monitoring, track and vehicle condition monitoring, use and certification of advanced technologies, life cycle costs, cybersecurity and climate change resilience. We already have a small pool of potential presenters, but we take also your suggestions for topics from the feedback questionnaire and summarize it a bit on this slide. The next date we will have 17 September, 8th of October is already in strong planning, then 12th of November and 10th of December. If we receive more topics and more willingness to present, and if you want to present by yourself, please let us know as well. Then we are free to set up additional dates for your presentations. So then, yeah, we are at the end of the webinar, and kindly request to use the feedback questionnaire to keep us informed, to give us your feedback on this presentation today, on this webinar, and also your suggestions for topics or your willingness to present by yourself. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.